Hi, Austin with Mystic Ape Games here, and I'm going to teach you how to play The End is Nigh. But first, I just want to make 2 points. The first is that this is a prototype copy of the game that you're going to be seeing. It doesn't have the complete art or graphic design, so just keep that in mind. This is not what it's going to look like. If you want to get a grasp for how the art's going to look, then go ahead and check out our Kickstarter page, and it'll have a lot of it there for you to check out. It's looking really good. The second note is in that same vein, some of the terminology has changed since this prototype copy was printed. It's just been for clarity. It hasn't been any rules changes or anything like that. So just keep that in mind that things might be worded a little bit differently in this video from the Kickstarter page. But the Kickstarter page has everything correct. So when in doubt, just reference that. So let's look at the components that are going to come in every single copy of the game. It does have a 40 card deck, which makes up most of it. And one of the most exciting bits here is the refugee cards. There are 8 of them in every single copy of the game. So you can see some of them here. Again, this is just the placeholder art and design. And these are non-playable characters that will be in every single copy of the game. We use 6 of them per game, so you'll have a bit of variability. And this one here does have a bit of the art that we are going to be using in the game, so you can get an idea of how it looks. It looks really good. Next up, we have 12 trait cards. These are used in every single play of the game. So these are traits that are going to belong to the non-playable characters. Some of them are just flavor. Others have some effects that will happen throughout the game. But you have to discover what is true about the refugees as you're playing. Next up, we have 7 allegiance cards. These are given to the players to determine what team they're on. There are 2 teams, the civilian team, and then there is the fanatic team. So it does say Cult Elder. That's another instance, like I mentioned, terminology. The fanatic team and the civilian team go head-to-head in the game. On the back of these cards as well, we do have a little turn breakdown, so you get an idea for what you're going to be doing on each turn of the game. Then we have 12 identity cards. These each have a special ability that you'll be able to use during the game. It's a once-per-game ability, and you'll have 2 to choose from, so it's nice. You'll always be able to kind of tailor what you want based on which refugees are in the game and who you're playing with. The important thing to know about these are these 2 are only meant for games that have 4 or more players. So if you're doing a 2 or 3 player game, be sure to take these out before handing them out. And then the last card is the Doomsday Clock. It is the round tracker, essentially. It's going to have these exile markers, which there will be 12 of them in the game, 10 white and 2 red. And that will go on the Doomsday track to keep track of rounds, and you'll take the counters off that and place them on refugees to vote them out. Doesn't make sense? It's about to. Let's go ahead. I'm going to show you how to set up the game and how to play. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start off the setup by placing the exile markers around the Doomsday Clock. So these exile markers, they essentially track every round, and then you also use them to vote at the end of your turn. So they serve 2 functions there, which is pretty nice. And as you can see here, it's important that the red exile markers go on 6 and 12, as that denotes whenever a refugee is going to be removed from the bunker. But I'll explain more about that in a minute. So once you're done gathering all these, you're going to go ahead and shuffle up the refugee cards and draw 6 to use. So let's do that. Alright, most important thing is you place one refugee at 6 and the other at 12, and then the other just go between them, so you'll have a nice little circular shape. There we go. Next up, we're going to take those 12 trait cards that I mentioned. You're going to shuffle those up, and then each refugee is going to get 2 of these cards. There's an icon on each refugee card that denotes how the trait cards are placed. The scientist is a bit unique there, but usually they'll be stacked or they'll be side by side. So we'll go ahead and place all those. And then you can see scientist is set up in a unique way like that. All right. So some of this is going off the camera frame. You'll just have to trust me that it's there. There we go. Then, depending on the number of players, we're going to go ahead and take the allegiance cards. You'll put in 1 civilian per player. I'm just going to do a 3-player game right now. And then 1 fanatic. So there we go. We're going to shuffle those up. And I'm going to deal 1 to each of the imaginary players here. Say one's there, and then mine is going to be right there. The other one is set aside. It's discarded in a 3-player game, but in larger count games, that might come back into play, so keep that in mind. All right, and then next up, you'll shuffle up the abilities. Remember to remove the 4+ if you're playing less than a 4-player game. And then you'll give 2 to each player, and then based on their identity, they'll be able to choose which one they want to keep. So then each player is going to choose one ability and discard the other, and then the game's ready to begin. So before we begin, let me explain things a bit. The end is nigh. An asteroid is on a collision course with Earth that is going to destroy humanity as we know it. Luckily, all the players have found a bunker that's going to keep us safe from the impending doom. These refugees, however, have showed up late. They want into the bunker, but we can only fit 4 of them in. So the players are going to have to decide which 2 of these non-playable refugees are going to be kicked out. What are our motivations there, though? Among them are members of a doomsday cult who are trying to sabotage the bunker to fulfill their prophecy. So we have to be careful to weed them out so we can make sure that they don't get in. However, one of the players could be a fanatic who is trying to get the refugees who are cultists into the bunker. So you have to be careful. Not only are you trying to deduce which of the refugees are cultists, but you're also trying to figure out if you can trust the people you're playing with, if they're a fanatic or not. Because a fanatic isn't necessarily in the game. So you got to be careful there. Now that we have that little overview, let's just go ahead and go over and we can jump in and explain more as we go. All right, first off, I'm going to go first. You randomly select a first player, so that first player is going to be me, Austin. I'm going to refer to this player right here as Sam, and this one is Jacob. So I'm going to look at my identity. All right, so I'm a civilian. I want to make sure that all the cultists are voted out. That is my goal. As you can see, you win if there are no cultists in the bunker at the end of the game. All right. I have 2 abilities to choose from, so let's see. These might not make too much sense to you guys yet, but I have the Salesman and the Masseuse. So the Masseuse is you may question an exhausted survivor, and the Salesman is you may question 2 survivors this round. And here's another instance that I was talking about. The terminology is a bit out of date on this prototype. They are refugees, not survivors now. I'm going to go ahead and choose the Masseuse. That's a pretty useful one, and you'll see why later. All right, so Sam is going to check out his identity. Oh, all right. So he is a fanatic. Remember, I mentioned that this terminology changed. So he's going to try to keep secret that he's trying to make everything fail. And he has 2 abilities as well. I'm just going to take a look at these real quick. The Drifter is a pretty good one for him. So after round 6, he'll be able to look through the discarded identities and choose one to keep for himself. So he's going to do that. He won't be able to do anything until after round 6, but it will be pretty useful for him. And then Jacob here, he's good as well. He's a civilian, so he's on my team, though we don't know that yet. His abilities, let's see. A lawyer, you may remove an exile marker from a refugee. And repairman, you may rotate the doomsday clock 1 space clockwise or counterclockwise, as long as one refugee is at 6 or 12. That's the doomsday clock, of course. You'll understand why that's good later, but for now, Jacob's going to go with that one because he's not quite sure he trusts us. Alright, so I'm going to start my first turn. On your turn, you start off by questioning a refugee. So of these 6 refugees, I'm going to choose one that I'm going to try to learn more about. I'm going to start off with the undergrad over here. So each refugee has a different personality that triggers when they're questioned. You can read the undergrads here. So with her, you get to look at both of her traits. That's not common. Typically, you look at one trait. Then draw 1 trait from any other survivor, do not look at it, and shuffle them all together. Return 2 traits to the undergrad and 1 to the survivor you drew from. So this could be a little bit dangerous, but let's see how it goes. So her traits. She is a pacifist, and if it has no text, it's basically just flavor. You don't have to worry about her. Whoops. There we go. And then she is a cultist. Alright, so I know that. At this point, I put him face down. I still have to draw one from somebody, and this is kind of dangerous because I don't really know anything about people. I'll go ahead and draw one from the athlete. I have to shuffle these up per her ability. Put one back with him, two back with her. And then now, after questioning, she is exhausted. The next player, Sam, won't be able to question her because she's tired. Before I move on, though, at this point, I can tell Sam and Jacob what I just learned. It's important to note that you can only say that she is or is not a cultist. I can't say she was a pacifist or anything like that. I can lie if I want, so if I were a fanatic, I could say she was fine, she wasn't a cultist. But I'm good, so I'm going to let them know, hey, whenever I question her, she was a cultist. I don't know where that card is now, though. So they kind of have a bit of a direction to go now, if they trust me. After I'm done exhausting her, I take the first exile marker and continue clockwise, and I have to vote on somebody to exile. I don't know who to go for. I'm going to go ahead and assume that she might have it, because she does have a little better odds. So I'm going to place that up there. That ends my turn. Now it's going to be Sam's turn. So Sam is bad, as you remember from earlier. He is our fanatic. So he's going to go ahead and question the athlete. He's pretending like he's playing good right now. So the athlete's effect is that he cannot be exhausted. So when questioning, draw and look at one trait. The trait you viewed is now exhausted and may not be viewed. The trait you did not view is now refreshed. So Sam's going to look at this one. All right. So it's the pacifist, so that means that the undergrad is still the cultist. Sam knows that now, but nobody else does. So per the athlete's ability, he's going to put that back down, and we're going to put it like this to note that it's exhausted. So now if people want to look at the athlete, they can only look at this one. Once they look at that one, this one will be refreshed. Sam can then make a claim about the card he said, and since he's a bad guy here, he's a fanatic, he's going to say that the athlete was a cultist. So he is going to also vote for the athlete to exile. After he's done exiling, we're going to go ahead and refresh the undergrad. Jacob will be able to question either the athlete or the undergrad now, just because the athlete never becomes exhausted. Alright, so now it's Jacob's turn. Let's say that he is trusting Sam at this point. He does think the athlete is a cultist. So he's going to go ahead and question the child. Let's see what the child is. So, child, you view both traits, and then after questioning, the child is exhausted until a refugee has been voted out of the bunker. So that means that there's another 4 rounds that are going to go by before the child is going to become unexhausted. So that's big. It's really important to try to question her early, because she'll only be able to be questioned twice per game, essentially. So let's go ahead. He's going to look at both of her trait cards, and she is a genius. Alright, so that essentially has no game effect, but it's good to know she's not a cultist. And then, she's a jerk. So what's that mean? If this refugee has no exile markers, okay, she doesn't, you must claim this refugee as a cultist and vote to exile them. Otherwise, you may claim this refugee is not a cultist. Alright, so that's not great. She's not a cultist, but since she's a jerk, Jacob is going to have to claim that she is, and then vote to exile her. So there we go. He has to do that. And then now she is exhausted. And now as far as Sam and I are concerned, she's a cultist as well. So we have 2 potential cultists right here, or these 3 because there have been so many claims. So Jacob just voted, he's done, and now it's my turn. So on my turn, I can't do anything about the child right now. Let's say I'm believing Sam at this point as well, so I'm going to go ahead and question the scientist. Okay, so let's see what she has. Alright, scientist is also a musician, multi-talented lady there. So that doesn't really help us too much. I know that she's not bad, and I guess I didn't explain what she does. So with the scientist, you draw and look at the top trait. You may not look at the trait card underneath the top trait. So that's a pretty important thing to note. This card cannot be looked at. However, that's not to say it can still be affected. So like with the undergrad's ability, for example, it could still be shuffled around. There are other ways to say it. You just kind of have to get clever with it. So I know the scientist is fine, so I need to choose someone to vote on. So let's say, let's say I'm trusting Sam. Okay, the cultist card is there. I'm going to vote to exile the athlete. So it's all going according to Sam's plan. Sam's turn now. It's his turn to choose someone to question. he's going to go ahead and question the Con Man. So the Con Man, he has a fun ability. You switch one of the Con Man's trait cards with any other trait card of your choice, then view the Con Man's new trait. So you never see the trait cards that are directly underneath the Con Man. You switch first and then view. So it's important to note that whenever you're doing an ability like the Con Man or the Undergrad that affects a different refugee, you can't affect somebody who's exhausted. So we can't switch with the child or the scientist right now. So he's going to go ahead and switch this card right here with this one underneath the athlete. And let's see what the new trait card is. The Prophet. Uh-oh, this isn't good for Sam. So the Prophet does have a special effect, and it says if the refugee is located at 6 or 12 on the Doomsday Clock, then negate one cultist card on one directly adjacent survivor at the end of the game. So the Con Man is at 6 o'clock here with the Prophet card, so that means if either of these two is a cultist at the end of the game, he will negate one of them. Not both, if they both become cultists, but one of the two. It's also important to note that if the Con Man himself is a cultist, it doesn't negate himself. At that point, he'd be a false prophet, you know. But he could negate the athlete or the undergrad, and Sam does know that the undergrad, by process of elimination, is a cultist right now, so he's not happy about that. So what is Sam to do? He can't really make a claim that he's a cultist because the child is apparently the second cultist. So he's just going to say that the Con Man's fine for now and hope that people don't discover that this is the Prophet card. And Sam does always have the option later to question the Con Man again to cycle that away from him. So for now, Sam's going to go ahead and put the nail in that coffin on the athlete. Vote to exile him. And that's the end of his turn. And the scientist is refreshed now. And the Con Man is exhausted. We'll continue over to Jacob. And now he has somebody to question. At this point, the only person who hasn't been questioned is the geezer, so Jacob's going to go ahead and do that. So the geezer, you shuffle both traits under the geezer and then draw one to look at. Alright, so let's see what happens with Jacob's questioning here. Alright, the geezer's rich. So that's nice for him. It doesn't impact us at all. So the geezer becomes exhausted. The Con Man is now refreshed. And then Jacob will be playing the red exile marker, so that means that the person with the most exile markers will be removed. Let's say Jacob is going to go ahead and put it on the... He knows the athlete's going to go in at this point because there's no way to tie it up. So let's just say he's going to put it on the scientist because he doesn't trust the scientist because of this card here. So he places that. After that's been placed, the refugee with the most exile markers is automatically removed. So the athlete has been voted out. So just put all their stuff to the side. We won't reveal that until the end of the game. So he's removed. These exile markers do stay out in the playing field though. So be sure to leave those. Okay, so we just had a refugee removed. So now the child is refreshed because, as you remember, her ability is that after questioning, she's exhausted until a survivor has been voted out of the bunker. We just had somebody voted out, so she's all good to go again. And then Sam is going to reveal his ability, his identity. If you remember, he is the Drifter. So after round 6, look through the discarded abilities and choose one to keep for yourself. So he is going to do that. And he has these ones that were used before. Salesman, you can make question 2 survivors. The Hypnotist won't really help him out because he could look at the 2 cards that were just removed. But he knows that they're fine, so he's not going to do that. And then the Repairman, which we mentioned earlier, being able to move the clock. Actually, that one's pretty good for Sam, because as you remember, he knows where the Prophet is currently, so he could switch the Doomsday Clock so the Prophet effect wouldn't take place. Sam's going to do that. So he's going to take that. And then now Jacob was the last person to question, so it's back to my turn. So on my turn, I'm going to go ahead and question the undergrad. She hasn't been looked at in a while. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to question the child. Jacob's the only one who's seen her so far. And I don't really know if I trust Jacob or not because he voted to exile her and then he voted for somebody else. So I'm going to look at the child. So I get to look at both the trait cards. All right, so the genius doesn't matter. And then the jerk, you remember that does. But the child does have an exile marker now. So I can claim that she is not a cultist and I don't have to vote to exile her. So, okay, I know what Jacob was doing now. That's good to know. But that means that I don't know where another cultist is. So that's kind of bad, but good still. So I'm going to go ahead and tell Jacob and Sam that she is not a cultist. And then Jacob kind of knows something about me now. And I'm going to vote to remove somebody. I don't know who. We haven't seen one card from each of these three. I'm just going to spread it out for now. I'm going to put one on Geezer. And speaking of the Geezer, he is now refreshed. That is my turn, and now it is Sam's turn. So on Sam's turn, he's going to go ahead and question the undergrad. He knows the cultist card is here, so he can really start to do some damage. So, ooh, wow. All right. So he has she has a cultist card, which we'll remember. And then the Doomsayer. If the refugee with the Doomsayer card is located at 6 or 12 on the Doomsday clock, they're a cultist. So that's kind of like the Prophet card, except it's bad. And Sam is liking this. So what is Sam going to do now? He has to do her effect, which, as a reminder, is she'll shuffle 2 of her trait cards with 1 of somebody else's. He's going to go ahead and do that with the Conman's Prophet card. Nobody knows this is here. So he's going to shuffle that up. Place 1 back with the Conman, 2 back with the undergrad. She's exhausted now. And Sam's just going to claim like everything's fine. He's going to be like, all right, yeah, she wasn't a cultist. So he's going to go ahead and vote out, let's say, the scientist. He'll just be trying to do a witch hunt, saying that she's untrustworthy. So that's Sam's turn. Now we're back to Jacob. Jacob is going to go ahead and question the Conman. But now he's going to use the Conman as a reminder. You switch trait cards and then view the new one. So he's going to use the Conman to switch trait cards with the one underneath the scientists. And look at that. Oh, the pet dog. So with the pet dog, 1 cultist card on this refugee is negated, but it does not negate the Doomsayer. So that's an important thing to note. But that's a pretty good card. So that's going to go under the Conman, and Jacob's going to say, you know, Conman, as far as I'm aware, he's fine. So he's exhausted now. The undergrad is refreshed, and then Jacob has to vote. Jacob's not going to vote for the Conman. The pet dog is pretty good safety measure. So he's going to vote for the Geezer. Alright, so now it is my turn. And we don't want to forget, I still have my ability here that I can question an exhausted survivor. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to use that to question the Conman, who is currently exhausted. So I'm going to basically do what Jacob just did. I'm going to switch this card with the card underneath the scientist. And let's take a look at that. Alright, clean freak. So he's now a clean freak. So the Conman seems pretty good now. I'm just going to go ahead and assume he's fine. And I don't know. It's kind of seeming like the Geezer might be the bad person now. I'm not really sure. But on the air of caution, I'm going to go ahead and vote for the undergrad. So that's what I'm going to do. So now it's Sam's turn. And at this point, Sam, it's his last turn, so he's really going to just need to go for it. So Sam is going to go ahead and start by questioning the undergrad. And he sees that she's still a cultist, and she's the Prophet. Okay, that's really good to know. He was about to use his ability to move the clock, but he doesn't want to do that now because he's fine that she doesn't have 6 or 12 pointed at her. So he's going to ignore his ability now. He doesn't have to worry about that. So he sees the undergrad, and he's going to actually go ahead and switch with the top card of the scientist. He's pretty confident at this point that he's going to trounce us. So put 1 back there, 2 there. He's going to flip the undergrad down, and then he is going to vote for, well, oh, who does he vote for now? I guess the Geezer. He's going to go ahead and continue with everybody else. And then the Conman is now refreshed. Alright, and then it is now Jacob's turn. This is the last turn of the game. He's going to go ahead and question the scientist. He's going to look at the top card there. Uh-oh, he sees this as a cultist. So that means Sam has been lying. That's not good. Okay, so Jacob is going to go ahead and do that, and then he's going to go vote for the scientist. In the case of a tie, the tie would be broken by whoever's turn would be next. Jacob's not going to even take any chances. He's going to reveal his identity now. He's a lawyer. He may remove an exile marker from a survivor that's after an exile marker is placed. So he's going to go ahead and do that to remove one from the geezer. No tiebreaker situation now, and the scientist is automatically removed. So let's see how we did. Scientist was removed. She had 2 very bad cards. Ooh, good thing we got her out of there. The athlete. Uh-oh. He just had the pacifist and a pet cat. What's that do? If the pet cat is directly adjacent to the pet dog at the end of the game, remove both cards from the bunker. So the pet dog chases the cat out of the bunker. So that doesn't affect us because the athlete was removed from the bunker himself. But that's not good. That means that there's a cultist in the bunker. Hopefully that's been negated somehow. Alright, so let's check. We'll start with the child. As we remember, she is fine. Let's see the geezer. Uh-oh. He's a cultist. And he doesn't have the pet dog. So that's not good. The con man. He is a clean freak with a pet dog, as we remember. And then the undergrad. She was the prophet and musician, but since she's not at 6 or 12, that has no effect. And there's a gap between them. They're not directly adjacent. So it looks like Sam came away winning this game as the fanatic, and Jacob and I lost. Bummer.